Thanks for coming today, Len. Len Scott from Scott's for Storage, a real-life farmer turned self-storage operator. Someone we've wanted to get on for a while now is someone from the agricultural industry who's gone into self-storage. And hopefully some really good insights from Len today to pass on to other farmers looking to get into self-storage. So thanks for coming, Len.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Do you want to start by giving us a bit of backstory to you, your businesses, who you are?
Yeah, I'm third generation on our farm. Mm-hmm. We were dairy farmers and sheep farmers, basically. Everything was going brilliantly until, obviously, there was foot and mouth in the region. Mm-hmm. And in March 2001, we had some young stock on a farm in the village. And my vet rung me at 9 o'clock one morning and he said, "Will you go down to Tony's and have a look at his stock?" He says he thinks he's got foot and mouth disease on the farm. I said, "That's no problem. Why don't you go?" He says, "Well, quite honestly, if I go," he says, "I won't be able to practice if it was foot and mouth." Mm. He said, "Don't worry, it won't be." And so he told me exactly what to look for. We got about half a dozen of these animals, put them through a crush, and we just said, well, we've never been so certain of anything in our lives. That's exactly what our vet told us to look for. They came onto our farm next day. There was no escape for us because the fact we'd been down there and been in contact, and we went from having that stock down to having one dog on the place. We didn't know what to do. There's a massive clean-up on the farm. They were called DEFRA shortly after that MAF put on this thing at the Scotch Corner Hotel, and they put 3 speakers on. And we listened to these 3 speakers, and they all were saying the same thing. We went thinking they would tell us exactly what the country wanted, and how to, when we restock, what to do. And they did a little bit of that, but all 3 speakers, all they could talk about was diversification. Mm-hmm. And we came out of that meeting and said, I don't think farming is going to be that good. At the time, we said, I think the government aren't really backing us. We talked about this, and I said to my son, I says, "Are you 100% wanting to go back in?" He stuttered a little bit, and he says, "Well, I'm not bothered if we pulled out of farming." So I thought, well, at my age, I don't want to be left with it if he's not 100% keen to go back in. And we made a decision eventually that we wouldn't restock. And it was one hell of an experience. A lot of our buildings were traditional stone buildings, so we made the decision that we would put those into business units. And we started work on that, and we ended up with, I think we have maybe 10 or 11 different businesses in there, plus a cafe. So once we'd done that, the next thing was, where does our main income come from? Now, I would love to sit here and say that I had this fantastic business master plan of what we're going to do, but that would be untrue. My wife was in Labour Marketplace one day, and a chap who ran a small removal firm says, "The problem with us is we remove furniture, but we have no storage." And I think for the first time in my life, the grey matter started whirring. So I went round to various places that had containers, and we decided, right, we will put 6 containers in a building. And I said at the time, if we let these, I'll buy another 2. Well, that's been the story ever since. We've been buying another 2. Mm-hmm. The containers we were buying were reconditioned, and the fact that we had 3 of these span buildings meant we could put them in there. So we filled one building, then we gutted another building, and it was all with people coming and saying, "Oh yes, we'd like to store some stuff." I says, "Well, give us 10 days, we'll have some containers." And that's gone on, and we filled 3 buildings. We were very successful. Then we started, we would have to put containers outside. And that's how we went. We just added on and added on. The containers, after a while, were thought a little bit dodgy with some of the containers being reconditioned, being out on the high seas. And I don't know whether I saw an advert for these one-trip containers But I jumped in my car and I went out to a depot on Teesside called Cleveland Containers. So that was how we started with these one-trip containers.
Yeah.
Now, for me, they're wonderful. The older ones that are outside, we tend to use them for builders, any on trade, and we don't have to guarantee the goods. If a little hole comes, they'll tell us and we'll repair it, and we charge less money for these. The cotton steel ones, we have so much confidence in those that we say to people when you come in, if your stuff comes in clean and dry, we'll guarantee it'll go out in the same condition. And we haven't been let down once.
So you've been in self-storage now for 20 years plus. What was it like back then when you first started? How did people find you? Have you changed much at all since then, or are you still just as you were?
Well, first of all, can I say, we never dreamt we would be in this position now. We're in a rural area. Now, I always think people in a rural area are always knows a farmer with a building and a barn to put stuff in, and I cannot believe that the demand has been so good. I mean, we'll take a little bit of credit with the way we look after customers. And the funny thing is, we're right on a main road, which is good. We have tremendous access for the largest lorries, and this was proved when we had the buyers for foot and mouth who could get the largest lorries in. So we always knew we could cope with that. It never fails to amaze me now how people can drive past a place and not know the business you're in. Like I say, we're on a main road, and we started this business, put signs up. And I'll tell you one story. One lady came and she said, I've driven past your place to go to work for the last 3 years, and I didn't realise you did storage. Another person went to the cafe, and this is 1 year ago, walked into the cafe and says, is there somewhere around here does storage? So signage is so important, and we've put a very 8 feet by 4 feet large sign, stood it back from the road now, and we have flashing lights around it so that people, when it's dark, the heads go around and they see it. The local Wensleydale show is only half a mile from where we are, and they asked us to sponsor them, and we said yes, but we'd like to put a sign below yours on the show field, which is there all the year round. And now everybody driving past, I would be very disappointed if they didn't see that. So I think signage is very, very important. We have a very good website. My IT man did it a few years ago. It's a modern age now where everybody goes on the web and they want to know where the storage is in a certain area. People aren't going to come from Teesside to use our storage. I mean, it's people coming into the area, it's people moving out of the area, people having work done at the house, things like that. There's our main customers. But yeah, advertising is very, very important, but signage to me is the big one when you're on a main road.
Yeah. When people see a sign, do your customers normally come in to sign up, or do they ring up or go to the website, or how do they normally sign up?
Obviously, there's a link from our website. A lot of people ring us up. We're a family firm. There's only myself, my son, and my wife. And my wife's very important for answering the phone. People will ring us up and we say, when do you want to come in? Now, a lot of them, like to come in, 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. When you've been a football fan all your life, 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon is not when I want to see people. So we do encourage to call in beforehand. The important thing nowadays is answering the phone. Like I said, I have a lot of years behind me. We are very lucky now. We all walk around with a computer in our pocket. And I will take a phone call at any time. Now, if somebody's wanting storage and they have the amount of patience that I have, they will ring twice, and if somebody doesn't answer the phone, they will go somewhere else. And once you answer it, you can promise anything. You can say, we'll meet you, I will ring you back later when I get home. As long as the customer has somebody to talk to, and we can hold them then. Like I say, with having these things in our pocket, we don't have to have an office. We don't have to have somebody sat in an office. We can divert the calls to our mobiles. They're sometimes a little bit dodgy in our area, the mobile signals out in the sticks, but basically it works very, very well.
That's good to know, yeah. It makes sense, but yeah, I imagine a lot of people, call centres and other things stuff, but you just want to speak to, you know it best, don't you? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I say, if we talk to them, mostly we've got them.
Yeah.
People say, what are your office hours? I says, you ring me, you'll get an answer, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
It isn't always convenient, but at least if we...
Yeah.
As long as we can talk to them.
Yeah. So over the years, what would you say some of your challenges with self-storage?
Maybe a lot of businesses getting money in.
Like chasing customers for their
Chasing customers for money. I don't know if you ever watched Storage Wars or whatever they call them. It was in America to set up. It came over here. That's the biggest load of bunkum that I've ever watched on television. I watched one, it was the American one in the early days.
Yeah.
And you know how they all stand outside, all these actors. They looked in this container, they're not allowed to go inside, and there was a curtain across. And they're all bidding outside, and they didn't bid too highly. And when we'd finished, they went in, took the curtain down, there's 2 brand new jet skis sat there. Now, I can describe the sort of stuff people leave in containers if they haven't paid us, and it's nothing like that. So there's a cost to emptying containers. Yeah. There's a lot of labour. A lot of people ring it up and, they want to store stuff. It can be marriage breakups, anything like that, and no thoughts going into how they pay us. Mm-hmm. I've had some very dodgy people come on the place and they've paid on the dot every time. I've had some very posh-looking people and I'm still chasing them for money. So it's very hard to judge people on whether you're going to get paid. And it is one of the downsides if you get a 20-foot container filled with absolute rubbish. But that is the downside of our business. And there isn't many, but I love what I do. I love the storage business. You meet a lot of very interesting people. We make a lot of friends.
Yeah.
A lot of them you're on first name terms with when they ring up. And I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah. Is that how you see you've grown? You obviously mentioned signage, but do you get a lot of people, word of mouth, referring people saying,
Absolutely. Yeah. I would have come to that actually. Yeah. But if you treat customers properly, they tell other customers. And the number of come, so-and-so was in with you. They said, come to you. They said, go to Scott's. And that's wonderful to hear. I don't care how much money you spend on advertising. That is the main thing that gets us business.
Yeah. Who would you say are mainly your customers? Is it mainly private individuals? Is it businesses, trade? Or is it just a broad mix?
Mainly, it's individuals, like I said before, the moving house, coming into the area, going out of the area. And a lot of people nowadays sell their own house and then they have plenty of time and they're going as cash buyers. One of the wonderful things about hiring a container off a storage firm is the storage firm pays the business rate. You can have a plumber and he'll stack his stuff in a garage if his wife will let him. But even if he does, if somebody drops them in, they're coming round and they want business rates for that garage. You said about downsides. Business rate is a downside. Our containers, they come out and they count them. And they said, you've got a lot more containers now, and boom. But I think business rates is very unfair because if we had a big downturn and a lot of empty containers, we are still paying business rates on them. And it is a fear for the future. I would be more in favour of them taxing us at a percentage of income each year from the containers instead of business rates. And that's fair because the money's coming in. You could get to the stage where you have 100 containers stood empty if there was a downturn for any reason.
Is there anything you don't allow in the store? Has anyone ever come anything with obscure or anything? Or
not that we know of.
Yeah.
We have had the sniffer dogs round once. I think that was for tobacco. And they came on the place, about 4 or 5 people. Do you mind if we send them round? I says, I don't mind at all, but if I said no, you couldn't, I don't think I could stop you. And these dogs go around, but in a rural area, we don't get bothered very much. I always say that in our containers, we don't flood, because some people want to insure the goods. I says, you can do, but we don't flood. The one thing that could happen is fire within a container, because they're vented, obviously. And I says, I'm afraid that's down to you. If you go and store a lot of petrol or something like that, it'll just burn your stuff. And I says, that's totally down to you. But we'd rather, if you're storing motorbikes and things like that, they shouldn't have a lot of fuel in them. Yeah.
Does anyone ever comment about they like you are rural, sort of away from the the busy centre, so they think there's less crime there, or the goods are more, do they feel like their goods are more safe because you are a bit more rural?
We have 46 cameras around the place. There's cameras everywhere. Now, that doesn't stop theft. As I said, if somebody wants to come in, they come in and they have balaclavas on, the number plates are false, and you wouldn't want to go and tackle them in the middle of the night. But the number of containers you have on a site, how do they know which containers to go for? Now, most of our business is household stuff. Now, you can't go down the pub, say to people, do you want to buy a wardrobe? Do you want to buy a sofa? The whole areas are floodlit. And like I say, 46 cameras. You do what you can.
Yeah.
But, we're a very low crime area being rural.
So that's an advantage for farmers going into self-storage. You've got that added security. You typically are, like you say, low crime.
And we also live on site. My son lives right next to the main entrance. I live, just a few yards away, so we have family on site all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound clever about it because, next week they could come in and do something. But like I say, they have to know. You don't go and break into containers willy-nilly. You've got to know where to go, to get something worth something. Yeah.
You mentioned on your site you've got other facilities. I think you've got a car wash. Is that right? In a cafe. Do you think having them extra facilities has been beneficial to bring in more self-storage customers, or is self-storage committed? It's nice things to have. It's not something I've very known of, but you've obviously seen a benefit from having them services there.
Very much so. A car wash brings a lot of people in. And the fact they come in and see our signs, then, maybe a year after, they might think, we're going to move house. Storage, we'll go to Bellaby because, we know they do it there. Now, in one way, we try and hide the storage part. People drive past and say, we would never have dreamt you had that many containers, because we make sure they're all the same colour, green, and they blend in with the fields. So, you do it both ways. You want folks to know you're there, but you don't want, a lot of containers right near the road where folks are saying, that's an eyesore. We live very near a national park. But we aren't in the national park, thank goodness. We couldn't have expanded like we have done. We'd have had to go for planning permission for every little thing we did. The planners have been very good with us. When we first started, we called them in and said what we were going to do and just a little bit of advice, and went away, and we have never had any problem with them at all. So we're very thankful for that.
Something that comes up a lot is planning. So, and we always speak to local authority, but would you advise farmers just to get them in from the early days, just say this is what I plan to do, and it's just no headache down the road? Because a lot of people will maybe put down 10, 20, 30 containers and then worry about planning later. Would your advice be to just get them in from before you put it down and less issues later?
I think everybody in authority, if you talk to them before you start and just say, look, we'd like to do this, just a few here, we're going to make them all the same colour, we're not going to have any old rusty things about, we'll try and keep it as classy as possible. And one thing they always like is, he said, we'll put a line of trees up. When people are driving past, the line of trees will shield them. And once you get started, I think it's easier after that. And once you're sure that you care about what you're doing, what you shouldn't do is go and buy 20 containers, just stick them somewhere, and expect everybody to think they're wonderful, because the world doesn't work like that. Try and do it the right way. But I'm sure once you get started, people will leave you alone if you're sure that you're doing your job properly.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. So why would you say self-storage is a good industry for farmers to get into?
I think farmers should diversify. Farming is getting to be fairly dodgy at times. Everything else is going up, the fertiliser, fuel, electricity, everything that we all use. And they have got to be helped, to do something. I would certainly advise anybody to do it because of what we've done. If you're running a farm, you have people on site all the time, all daylight hours, there's people there. So you can run it staff-wise alongside the farm. You don't need a lot of labour, and you can avoid any extra costs. Farmers tend to have their own land. They're not having to pay rent for land. As long as you can keep the entrance to your containers clean and separate it slightly from the rest of the business, I think it's a brilliant way of earning extra money. I think a lot of small farmers need all the help they can get.
No, that's great. So finally, if you could go back to day one, everything you've learned now, if you could go back to day one, what would you tell yourself?
Well, we'd have done what we did quicker. For one thing, like I say, we just dribbled into the job. And knowing what I know now, there is a demand. And if you do your job properly, people will come. It's easy with hindsight. I told you before, we never dreamt that we would get to this, the size of business that we have. I would tell myself to buy the best quality containers on the market. We went in, like I say, we reconditioned ones, which did a great job for us. You would plan where you put them differently. We've added on and added on. We have zones. It's a bit of a maze, really, which, with hindsight, if we knew how we were going to do it, we would have planned it out in all avenues, as modern ones are. You know. We are open. I've said we've looked after customers, what have you, but we are open all the time. If somebody wants to come at 11 o'clock at night, they just drive on. We provide the padlock. Lots of people work during the day, and if you were going to, run your business with other people's working hours, they can't come. If they're going to come at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would want warning, else we might be up there with baseball bats. But within reason, and that's another thing. We didn't want to restrict when people were coming. So I'm afraid we don't have fancy fences, no electric gates or anything like that. All we have is cameras to keep an eye on people and hope that serves as well. So.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a different way of doing it. You hear there's a lot of sites who go the full whack with security, but if you're in the right area, trust your customers, do the things that protect you, like cameras, for example, then why not just have it open?
All I can say is it's worked well for us, the way we are.
Yeah. Some really good bits there for other people, the farmers maybe, who are looking at getting self-storage can listen and take things away and hopefully start their journey into self-storage. Thanks for coming. It was really great to see you. I think one of our longest standing customers, I think, of Cleveland Containers. I've been here 8 years now. I think I've heard Len Scott a fair few times bounce around the office from when we were at the old depot to where we are now and stuff. So no, we all appreciate your business, and hopefully many more containers on the site to come over the next couple of years.
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. Cheers, Len.
Pleasure.
Chatterbox was brought to you by Cleveland Containers, the UK's leading supplier of new and used shipping containers and the largest supplier to the container self-storage market. If you're looking to enter the self-storage industry or streamline and expand your current site, talk to us about Box Plus, our one-stop service that can provide you with everything you need to set up and run a simple, remotely operated and profitable self-storage business. For more information, head to clevelandcontainers.co.uk and follow us on social media for more content on all things shipping containers and self-storage.